Hey, everybody, welcome to Stadium Drive, the podcast. This is episode 2 of a 10 episode series where we're going back and talking about our first record, Scenic City. 10 episodes corresponding or correlating with 10 songs on the first record. My name is Jeff. This is Alex.
Hey,
This is our
this is Pablo,
the producer. And so, yeah, this is our second episode. We're going to be talking about the second song on the record, Mountain Standard Time, or MST. If you're interested in hearing the first one, go back and listen to the first one. Also, if you've never heard MST, this is probably a good time to pause the video and go listen to that and come on back. We're just to kind of give another brief overview. This project is really kind of to go through. Maybe we'll talk about the lyrics, some of the fun gear that we use, some of the fun stories that of us maybe playing the song live, those types of things. So yeah, Mountain Standard Time, second song on the record.
Yes, sir.
I immediately think of, we came off of Walden Part 1, and it's this very like raw, like live sounding feel. Naked in a sense where there's not a ton of instrumentation.
Yeah.
To all of a sudden, the first note of MST coming in on track 2, and it's just this big kind of like reset.
I completely agree. I feel like it's a reset, but it's also just the same key ingredients, but brought up to now the full kind of band sound level, not just like a couple guitars in a room, a couple guys in a room. Now it's like, okay, here's what this can be when we actually want to, go big with it.
And you said key ingredients. It's also in the same key.
Yeah.
So we have kind of this like E note, this E chord ringing out, and then
F sharp technically.
F sharp, yeah.
Oh, you picked perfect guys out there.
Yeah. We'll talk about capo math in this episode. A little bit about that.
Bit of that,
yeah. So this F sharp chord ringing out, and as it kind of starts, you have the bird track, which we talked about in episode 1.
Out there.
Yeah, and all of a sudden, it just comes right back in with bass. I think we had
bass and drums, but other than that, it's essentially still just two guys with acoustic guitars, which I think is nice. It's in contrast to just the two guitars, it feels huge, like you're saying, but in reality, it's still a very modest band setup.
Yeah, how would you say, like, because we talk about this all the time in the studio, which this is the studio.
Yep.
We literally did all this work literally right in this room.
Yeah.
But like talking about kind of that big switch, are you doing anything production wise differently to make, because the acoustics are always at the core of every song, like even when there's like 12 guitar tracks, you can still hear the acoustics, but then somehow the sound just sounds so much bigger.
Well, and I think it's the two acoustics thing is definitely the core of our sound, because that's how we have played the majority of the time. When we go out and gig, for those that don't know, it's usually just the two of us with acoustic guitars. I'll usually bring a few little guitar pedals just to kind of flesh out some of the bigger arrangements that we have. But it's a relatively modest, very simple setup. And so I think this, to answer your question more directly, whenever you add more elements into that, like bass and drums, you definitely have to start mixing things a little differently. Like, I think, generally there's less low end of our guitars when I have bass and drums, because the bass and drums are filling up so much of that noise, right?
Sure.
And these are subtle differences. It's not like I completely gut the low end of the guitars, once bass and drums are in. That's usually not the case. But yeah, you make some just like slight course corrections when you have more elements in there, for sure.
That makes sense, because I've seen you and we'll get over to some instrumentation stuff in a second, but yeah, I've seen you kind of throw things into, whether it's like delay or reverb kind of things, you'll throw all of that stuff kind of in, and then it's all sort of, you call them like a bus or whatever, like where it's all on.
I'm basically, I use bus channels to create essentially like a fabricated room reverb that I can then put whatever instruments or vocals that I want to put into, and I usually use it as almost like a gluing mechanism, so that the song, all these instruments start to sound like they're in the same kind of room and have the same sort of vibe. And sometimes special case instruments, whether it be like a lead guitar or like a violin, they need to be treated differently than maybe all of the acoustic guitars do. So maybe they'll get their own, room sound, just tailor made for them. But I'd usually try and keep it as minimal as possible.
Yeah, and I think it stays minimal and kind of in that rawness because it still has that folk nature,
Hmm.
but it also kind of like to your point about the reverbs and kind of like growing the sound, it kind of almost starts leaning into that poppiness.
Yeah,
So this is easily like the most pop song on the record, probably,
yeah,
or arguably. It's definitely
I,
the one that gets the most
I would agree with
like
that statement.
airtime. And I just think it's definitely a different. It's a change of pace from even just track one, and so it
Mhm.
kind of goes in to kind of showing you what we can do, and we're kind of a little bit on that higher energy side.
Definitely.
Really quick, just like the lyrics, like Mountain Standard Time. What's funny is it's about a girl who lived in Nebraska at the time,
Yeah,
but
that's
her
right. I forget.
yeah, but
I always
her
forget this. This is funny.
so in Central Standard Time, but her dog's name was Aspen, which is like a Colorado reference,
Mhm.
and so yeah, it was just kind of this
So
funny thing
really, you were
where
in love with their dog, is what you're trying to say.
I mean, yeah, if I could go back, but
Been there, man. Been
but
there, man.
but no. So like it basically it's about like the key hook, which is like I don't mind waiting on Mountain Standard Time, is like kind of that moment where you like maybe you're half of a relationship that's like, hey, like I'm good, like this is a cool thing,
Mhm.
and maybe you need time to like kind of think about it or decide. But when you're like, I don't mind waiting on Mountain Standard Time. It's like I'll be around. Like, and so that's kind of where it's at. And there's some kind of fun turn of phrases in it too,
Mhm.
like um, which yeah, you'll have to go kind of listen to it. But yeah, so that's kind of where the Mountain Standard Time. It's always funny though when I tell people like it was actually written about someone who was living in Nebraska at
Yeah,
the time.
yeah. I always
Uh,
forget that, and it's
yeah.
such a funny detail. Yep.
And everyone's like, "Do you know how time zones work?" And I'm like,
Like, nope,
"I
never.
promise you, I do." But yeah, so like I said, it's easily our biggest song. I checked the other day, and that thing is playing in like multiple countries and cities all over the country, which is really cool. So
Are you sure it's not people in other countries just trying to figure out time zones and they're accidentally getting clickbaited to
yes,
our song?
it's really big among skiers,
Yeah. Like,
backpackers, people eating Cliff Bars.
what if we just got like picked up by Expedia.com and didn't know it? They're just like using our song anytime
Yeah,
someone's looking
they're
up
like these schmucks.
Denver flights.
Yeah, yeah, these schmucks don't have any idea.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, but anyway, so yeah, as you were kind of mentioning the instrumentation, and I think
Mhm.
while this song is still pretty simple,
Mhm.
there was some really cool things we were doing. You know, Alex and I's acoustic guitars are at pretty much the core of every song we do.
Mhm.
We're normally in different capo positions, so we
Mhm.
mentioned like the E versus F sharp. So,
Mhm.
um, what capo were you
So
playing?
Jeff wrote this song in capo 2, I believe, but
Capo
in the
two.
key of E. So technically, that would put the song in the key of F sharp. I wound up playing the song in C, but with capo on 6. So still in F sharp, but obviously a completely different position.
And
And
that's where you wrote the
yeah,
lead lick, right?
yeah, maybe that's the best time. This is the best time to switch over here and kind of just look at that. So yeah, if you look at, let's look at Jeff's part first, just so we can kind of hear what the original song was written off of here. That'd be this. We've got 4 mics on his guitar. This is actually one of the only songs I put 4 mics on both the guitars. I don't know, I don't even remember doing it, frankly, but we did it. It sounds great.
So there's probably like one on the neck, sound hole, and then like two kind of
Yeah,
out
I
front.
believe I had 2 pencils on, one pointing from kind of the headstock, and then one kind of pointed more towards the body. And then I believe I had the 2 condenser mics just like above and slightly below, directly in front of it.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I believe.
So-
But again, I hardly remember doing this, so that's kind of funny that we pulled this up. I was surprised. I was like, hey, there's 4 acoustic tracks for each of us. That's crazy.
So what happens if you switch to soloing only your?
Yeah, so there's Jeff's guitar. And then here's the little lead part I wrote off of it. So there's that. Then Let's add Jeff's back in here. And so there's your blend, right? And then we were talking a little bit about the room bus. Maybe this is a good time just to quickly touch on what that is exactly. So if you can see here, this is my acoustic reverb. And this is basically just the room reverb that I made. It's kind of a composite of a few different reverb sounds and some EQing I did just to kind of clean it up. Sometimes you start adding stuff and weird frequencies build up, and so I'll try and kind of dial that back as I can. But the reverb of these two guitars sounds like this.
Like kind of trippy.
Yeah, so it definitely feels like you're standing like maybe far away in like a weird hallway or even maybe a cathedral of some sort. But yeah, and then you mix that in with, it's pretty subtle. So reverb's in now with the guitars. Let me take it out. Pretty big difference.
Very
right?
clean, yeah, very crisp.
So back in. Just gives it a lot of richness, I think. So
Cool.
that's all I'm doing. Pretty subtle stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But again, it kind of makes all the difference, especially there where like basically beyond those two instruments, we've got you playing bass. I think I did like a little train beat on a snare drum.
Yeah.
I don't think there were really any like even cymbals on it. And so yeah, when there's not a ton of instrumentation, it's kind of nice to have like something that's just lifting those instruments a little bit.
Yeah, just for fun, just because we probably won't do a whole lot of this, but just here's the train beat just for a minute by itself. Nice, nothing crazy.
Yeah. And I guess this is a great time to shout out. Caleb Ferry was our drum tech for this.
Yeah.
As Pablo just like
Oh,
off
yeah.
the board. So Caleb Ferry was our drum tech. So that really, really rich kick drum sound he brought over his really, really, really nice drum mics to kind of help us get that old kit sounding good. I think on track like 4 or 5, when we get into the actual drum tracks, we'll talk more about the drum set. But
just to quickly say off of that is that the kick drums, especially, he has this record. Unlike our next record, actually, we only use 1 kick drum mic. This we use 2 kick drum mics for almost everything, I think. And I think that makes some of despite having a very modest drum set, the kick drum to me always felt very big and epic, and I think 2 microphones was to credit for that.
Yeah.
So thank you, Ferry.
And modest is putting a real, like I said, on let's save that for the easier said than done episode.
Yeah, okay.
The drum set was in pretty some
Rough shape.
disrepair.
Yeah. Black mold might have been involved.
Yeah. We got Pablo messing with the
CDC
plastic.
was maybe called.
Yeah. For real. Cool. Yeah. So as we're kind of wrapping this up, again, I think MST stands like, or kind of speaks for itself. It's very much so.
It's very straightforward.
I think when people think about that first record, that's kind of that, like maybe like the single that kind of really set it off, even though technically it was the second single. But you know, what I kind of think about when I think about this song, just in general, kind of just the vibe of it all is like, this was one of the first ones that I saw people starting to sing along to, like at shows.
That's right.
You know, a lot of it's obviously local and some of the folks that really follow us, but this was the one where I would look out and be like,
oh, people know this.
Yeah, it's like, damn, you're singing to songs that we like made, which is really, really cool. And like thinking back to our album release party last April at Gina's, you know, at the Hideout, like
so much fun.
we started it off with Walden into MST, and just like the moment where we hit the last chord and everyone just like kind of goes ballistic, and you're like, shoot, like like the thing that we made, which again is objectively, you know, it's on the popular side, it's kind of you know, it's very accessible, but then you like see your community like actually
rally around it,
like congratulating it, and you're like, oh man, this is actually kind of a cool little project.
For sure. Yeah.
Otherwise, like I said, I think it stands for itself. I don't think there's too much more on this one. I think as we kind of go through the episodes, we'll
Mhm.
kind of tackle more of the instrumentation.
Yep.
If you are interested, we have physical copies of the record you can buy from us. Just reach out, we'll hook you up. Um, all of our songs are on streaming services now, so you can go and check it out. Like I said, this is our 10 episode series, so you can look back at the first Walden episode if you want. We'll be coming out with episode 3, which is Don't I Know?
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll catch you next
Mhm.
time.
Standard Time. I'm on Mountain Standard Time.